I just spent a week with the new Kia Sportage in hybrid EX form, and it was pretty good, so let's break it down. Welcome to Downshift Studios. My name is Matt. We're doing things a little bit differently here by walking through the Sportage in the studio today. It's allowing me to touch on a few more things like other trims within the lineup and other vehicles that this thing may or may not compete against. So we're gonna break this thing down on how we usually do our studio head-to-heads. We're gonna talk engine, transmission, driving dynamics, design, interior, and livability, finally price, and of course we'll wrap out with what I would take and what my thoughts are on this vehicle as it stands. So we'll start with the engines. The Sportage for this new generation gets almost every possible powertrain you could think of, aside from EV. The base engine is a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder. It makes 187 horsepower and 178 pound-feet of torque, which probably won't set your heart on fire, but we had the powertrain that uses their 1.6 liter turbocharged four-cylinder in tandem with their hybrid system. Total output comes to 227 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. Supposedly, according to the EPA, that hybrid is good for 38 mpg, but that's of course if you go nowhere near 75 or 80 miles an hour. You're gonna see it plummet right there. There's also a plug-in hybrid version of the Sportage, which ups power to 261 horsepower, but you get the same number in torque. It's the same 1.6T, just with a bigger battery, a little bit more power output. That PHEV is also good for 34 miles of fully electric range, and the PHEV only comes in all-wheel drive. The power from the hybrid that we had never really felt slow or low in any way. It felt perfectly fine. It cut between gas and electric fairly seamlessly. It's not quite as smooth as some of the Toyota models that we've tried, but still, 90% of the people that are gonna buy this thing aren't even gonna notice. The engine doesn't make the best sound, but it's not a sports SUV, so I'm not really expecting it to. The biggest thing that did concern me though was the average MPG that did start to drop toward the low to mid 30s as soon as we got up on the highway. Again, the EPA is claiming about 38 MPGs on the highway for the hybrid. It wasn't really that windy, so it was a little disconcerting to see it start to drop because we were achieving that 38 MPG, but then around 75, 80 miles an hour, it started to go down. Now in terms of transmission, the cool thing about the hybrid is that it gets a normal 6-speed automatic transmission, not a CVT. Again, 90% of the people that are gonna buy this thing won't care what transmission it comes with, but I like the feeling of having a stepped gear set rather than, kind of a rubber bandy CVT. You get on the power and it goes like that. Apologies for that. The plug-in also gets the 6-speed automatic, and the normal naturally aspirated base engine gets an 8-speed automatic, so no CVTs in sight across the entire Sportage lineup. Which brings me to dynamics of the car. I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on this section because the driving experience can be summed up in one word. It's good. There's a little more wind noise coming into the cabin than I might like, but the visibility is good. The steering is a little numb, but it's fine for something like this. The ride is smooth and soft and comfortable, and the power and brakes are perfectly adequate for whatever you're gonna ask of the vehicle. Having driven the Tucson's sister, it feels like the Sportage has a little bit better visibility. I like the cabin design and coloring. It makes it feel a little bit bigger in the cabin, but the Tucson experience in the cabin did feel a little bit more upscale, but the ride is almost identical between the sister vehicles. Then in terms of the exterior design, I will say, looks are subjective and the styling on this thing is polarizing. Some people were totally offended by it and other people were like, yeah, I'm about this. However, I think the styling achieves what it needed to do. This is a crowded segment, so Kia needs to do something to stand out from a very strong competition set. RAV4s and CR-Vs have more history and more pedigree, so a loud and interesting design can get people's attention long enough to understand and see that this is a very solid product that you probably want to consider if you're looking for something in this segment. But specifically the look on this thing, you've got a face that I personally think looks a little bit like a Dragonfly. It's a lot of grille and you got these kind of X-shaped LEDs up front for your running lights. It seems each trim gets a unique wheel option, so you can kind of tell what everyone's driving, if you know kind of thing. And then the C-pillar has a cool textured detail for some added flair. We had this on the Nero EV that we tested the other week. It had that kind of silver C-pillar, which was very Audi R8. And then the rear end, it's mostly taillight in terms of design. There's not a lot else going on, but it is a very similar kind of X shape that you would get from the running lights up front. You also have a powered tailgate in the EX trim, but you don't have the kick-to-release tailgate under the bumper. Then jumping inside the car, talking about the interior, the cabin area is good news, bad news, or maybe good news and kind of the news that you were expecting, seeing we're talking about a Kia here. On one hand, the interior isn't made of the most premium materials, and you're occasionally reminded of that as you interact with stuff, but on the other hand, the design, the features, and the space, and the use of space is really, really solid. There's really only one complaint I have from a functional perspective, and it's something I've brought up in the Niro EV and the EV6 that we tested earlier in the year. It's the center area where you have the climate menu or the media menu. I hate it, but maybe that's just me. We won't dwell on it because we've talked about it before. The things that I do like are the two-tone light interior, which makes the cabin feel big and spacious and relaxing without using cheap material, well, some of the material, but without using like cheap looking like light gray interior. That's what seemingly all manufacturers go to make the light interior, but it's nice to see a little bit of a difference, in the two-tone looks more expensive than it otherwise would. You've got a big 12-inch digital infotainment system, or excuse me, digital gauge cluster. It doesn't really change that much, but it does look nice and gives you what you need in terms of information. And then you also do get a 12.3-inch infotainment system. You've got quiet mode, you've got a hybrid monitoring page, so you can see if you're recouping energy, deploying energy, where it's going, all that sort of thing. You've got the sounds of nature. Lively Forest is the best ever. I don't know why, but I've latched onto it. And you do have wired CarPlay. We're kind of getting to the price point toward the $35,000 mark where I would look to see wireless, but I think it's fine for, you know, the $33,800 that this thing is as tested at. You get a wireless charger that works pretty well. You've got a great driver assistance suite. We talk about the Hyundai Kia systems a lot on this channel being very good. It's their H-2. You've got heated seats, you've got a heated steering wheel. If you go up in trims, you will get cooled seats in the front. Remember, this EX trim is the second from the bottom, only the LX is below. So you're getting a lot of features and a lot of luxuries for your price point here. You get a nice spacious rear seat. You get a really big trunk, it folds. There's really not a lot to not like. Really, the only drawback that I could see is some of the less than stellar materials and build quality, but again, with the price being what it is, we'll get into that now. The EX hybrid that we tested came in at $33,860 as tested, including destination. And I feel like you are getting a lot of car for your money there. To go up to the plug-in hybrid, which gives you that 34 miles of fully electric range, plus a little bit more horsepower, you go up to $38,500, not including destination. And then if you go down and you don't want the hybrid, you want the base engine, you can get a Sportage starting at $26,000. That's pretty inexpensive. Ultimately, I think the hybrid, especially if you can get it under $35,000, the amount of kit that you're getting, the unique styling, the interior space, I think it's a real value for dollar under that $35,000 mark. So now I've made it to the part of the video where I give my take on this car. If you're not interested in that, feel free to click off. If you've liked the video until this point, I would appreciate a thumbs up and a sub. But if you are interested in my take, here we go. I feel like I have been kind of making it fairly clear throughout the video my thoughts of this. I am a fan of the Sportage, at least in the hybrid form that we tested here the other week, but there is an elephant in the room and it comes from the sister company Hyundai, and it's the name Tucson. The Tucson is a couple $100 more than the Sportage in pretty much every trim, but to me personally, I like the look a little bit more. It's still pretty wild, but it's I don't know. It's just a personal preference thing, but to me, more importantly, I like the interior build and design. Maybe not the design, because I like the design of the Sportage too, but I just feel like the interior and the cabin area in the Tucson is a little bit more expensive, a little bit more upscale, although it does use more piano black plastics. So I might lean Hyundai in that way, but it still really comes down to style preferences. You're gonna get a good car either way here. Then there are things like the Subaru Forester. I'll take the Sportage over that. The RAV4, I'll probably take the Sportage over the RAV4 hybrid just because there's a billion RAV4 hybrids on the road and we don't need another one. And then the CR-V is all new for this generation. We haven't been invited to come and take a look at it just yet, but the Subaru Forester and the Honda CR-V do not currently offer plug-in hybrid options, so that is something that you'll have to go to either Toyota, Hyundai, or Kia for. So overall, I'm pretty impressed with the Kia Sportage Hybrid EX all-wheel drive. So thanks to Kia for sending it over so we can take a look at it, and we'll see you in the next one.